Hello and welcome to More Than a Game, a podcast dedicated to the Premier League, the A-Leagues and more. This week on the show, New Year, no football as the pandemic postponements continue in the A-League with just a good win for Adelaide marking a pretty sparse holiday calendar. Meanwhile, in the Premier League, the title is set, plus we talk Lukaku regret and a night to forget for Gillette. Yes, I rhymed Gillette with forget, but we'll move on. All that, listeners, plus our monthly MTAG FPL prize winner, your questions and more. I'm your host, Colby, and here to take you through it with me is Tommie C. Happy New Year to you, mate.
Happy New Year to you too, mate. Good to be on here with you to talk some football.
Absolutely. And you've come in at short notice. You're in off the bench for Damo, who was supposed to be on the pod today, but I think he's out of town and he's forgot to take his mic with him and his iPad. He's off the grid.
He's just getting forgetful in his old age. Our Damo.
Big shout out to Damo though, who picked me up this beautiful football shirt that I'm wearing for Christmas. Listeners, we'll link to this guy on Twitter. I think Damo found him and he makes some pretty good shirts that are in the style of like 90s wrestling shirts, crossovers with football stuff. So, I mean, we'll have to link to this guy eventually because these are elite. But shout out to Damo for that.
I didn't realize you had yours or you were going to wear yours.
Otherwise,
I would have worn mine as well.
First opportunity, and I appreciate this is an audio medium. So, listeners, if you ever want to get around the YouTube version of this podcast, we link to that in the show notes. Otherwise, you'll have to use your imaginations, or if we ever post a photo. But lots to get through on the pod today, despite the lack of football. But Tommie, we'll kick it off with a question from our boy Shannon. Back from his question last week about the best footballers born on Christmas, he now wants to know the best footballers born on New Year's Day.
And he's done us the righty this time, like I think you're about to say, Colby, and he sent us the link, which I had to go digging for last week, which was sort of some of the big names who were born on the 1st of January. A couple of highlights I picked out were Jack Wilshere, who just by mentioning him by name, I'm sure he's now injured. Paula Guerrero, who a lot of Australian fans would remember from, it's the Peruvian striker from the World Cup. Also like to celebrate whether it was on his birthday or not on his birthday. Remember the band that he copped for partying too hard? Yep.
Loves the celebration. Loves the celebration.
Davasuka from the Croatian team of the late 90s, also Real Madrid, and I think he played for Arsenal as well for a period. And Lilian Thuram, which also another big name from the early 2000s, late 90s. It's some big names there, and it's hard to pick a favorite out of them, but probably got to be Davasuka, I think. He was big in the late 90s, and I don't know, I'm not quite young enough to remember a lot of the 98 World Cup, but I remember Croatia going deep in that, and I'll give it to him for that.
Wow. I mean, for me, Shannon's question was the best footballer born on New Year's Day. So, I mean, I'd have to say it's Thuram there. Ooh. But also I see my boy Mahmoud Dahoud on there as well, who I've been known to pick on FIFA career mode almost every season in midfield. Handy little player on FIFA. I mean, former Liverpool fullback and now disgraced former footballer John Flanagan is on there as well. I noted the Scouse Cafu and Sada Azmoun, the Iranian footballer, whose photo on here looks suspiciously like a home brand Harry Maguire. when really popular footballers have a bad game, like it'll be Salah or Suarez or even like some of the managers, and then like rival fans will post photos of them looking like budget.
I know what you mean. Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, oh, here's Salah, and it's like just actually some other random Egyptian dude.
Yeah, it would just be or like the Indian doppelganger or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. The doppelganger from another country. This is unfortunate for Sada Azmoun. He looks like the budget Harry Maguire in this pick.
Oh dear.
In famous birthdays, but yeah, he's on there as well and deserves a shout out, as does Shane Duffy as well. Few good names on there. Thanks for the question, Shannon. Tommie, let's go through a few moments of the week and own goals before we get on to listener questions and some of the football. What stood out to you this week?
Well, I think my moment of the week was hard to go past. A good bit of a theme this week for my moment of the week and own goal, and it's penalties. So first up, my moment of the week is we're going to Japan for the All Japan High School Tournament, and this one involved Ryotsu Keizai Agashi and Kindai Wakayami. They were playing, and the game finished, and I'm guessing it was all even, and they went to a penalty shootout. And then one of the players at the end of during this penalty shootout tried sort of the old sort of Zaza run up. And it took him a full 30 seconds to run up and get to actually kick the ball. And it almost made me think, am I watching a GIF while this is playing, or is it just on a loop? And so yeah, that was spectacular. And I mean, he ends up scoring as well, so that's great. But yeah, just we're seeing how far penalties are going at the moment, and it's things are starting to get ridiculous.
Didn't Pogba have a run up like that once upon a time as well? I seem to recall him experimenting with the very long run up.
Very, very similar to Pogba. And then you remember Pogba, he was starting to get good at it. And then all of a sudden the wheels came off and just they started to get saved every time. And I mean, obviously the wheels have sort of come off Pogba's career sort of in general, but it was sort of maybe the beginning of the end for him.
It all starts with the taking the piss on the penalties.
Karma.
I thought actually, Tommie, you were leading into talking about the that Japanese set piece that was doing the rounds on social media, where they were like doing like a ring around the rosy or something, and then scored a goal off a set piece free kick. I don't know whether you saw that one, but it was also quite entertaining. It was like in the Ted Lasso school of set pieces.
It was the same tournament, I believe. But what that set piece with basically how they were just running around sort of in circles reminded me of a set piece that we used to do when I was playing under 20s at uni. And basically it was very similar to that, where you had sort of 4 or 5 players all sort of running around, sort of like ring a rosy, and we called it the honeypot. And you'd all be buzzing there in the honeypot, and then just before the player that took the corner or the free kick, you'd then just sort of burst in all different directions. They never had any idea what was going on in the opposition.
Did you ever score any goals on it?
No sweet goals coming out of the honeypot.
Honeypot was dry. My moment of the week is that we had a bit of FFA Cup action, and good on Melbourne Victory for getting up and progressing to the quarterfinals, where they'll face Adelaide United after downing the Gold Coast Knights. But also, great for the Victory, but also what a moment for the Gold Coast Knights, who hosted the game at the Gold Coast Croatian Sports Centre and took the VUC into extra time as well. So gave them a very competitive game, and listeners might be aware, especially if they watch the game, that in the Gold Coast Knights have a pretty decent squad for non-A-League level, and with some names that A-League watchers will be familiar with, such as Mitch Nichols, Jai Ingham, Mirta Muratovic, and Scott McDonald as player manager.
The only thing they're missing, I think, is Paula Guerrero there at the Gold Coast Knights.
Oh man, that squad would have quite the season with a few of those names. I reckon Mitch Nichols, Jai Ingham, and Scotty Mack even are probably leading the boys, leading the charge on some of those nights out. And speaking of own goals, Tommie, what have you got for us this week?
All right. This one is not quite as obscure as the Japanese All Japan High School Tournament. This one is a little bit closer to home, and it's from the A-League actually, and it's we talked about studded run-ups, and it's my own goal this week is Craig Goodwin starting the studded run-up. I'm not sure if he's the first to do the studded run up in the A-League, but I feel like he was definitely sort of one of the most notable with him obviously scoring 2 penalties in the game against Wellington. But as someone who doesn't like either the studded run up or the IPA, aka the Hoppy Boy, I just don't want to see the started run up be sort of the standard penalty in the A-League, and so for me that's this week's own goal for me.
This was one of my questions for you this week, Tommie. I've got this on the run sheet, actually, like how you describe that penalty technique, because it was, I guess, technically it was a stutter run-up, but gee whiz, both times they were very slow. That was a very protracted pause there before he actually took the penalty.
And I think it's becoming a bit of an issue for the governing bodies because obviously there's a fair play aspect to it, there's a sportsmanship aspect to it, and so I think at some point someone's going to draw the line and say, all right, this season no more Hoppy Boys, no more studded run-ups. Basically, they're just going to have to take a zero tolerance approach to it, because like all jokes aside, it is getting a bit ridiculous now, and it's almost becoming the standard that every penalty is a studded run up. And I mean, it does already the odds are heavily stacked in the taker's favour, but obviously needs to still be, I guess, the goalkeeper still needs to have an opportunity, I guess.
Give the keepers a chance, Tommie. Give them a chance.
Yeah.
But I just don't know how you generate power off that. Craig Goodwin, he seemed to actually stop, and his leg seemed to sort of stop midway through and was waiting for the keeper to commit as well. It was a really slow stutter.
Reminds me of like the old futsal penalty, right, where you're only allowed to take one step. And like whenever I've ever taken them, you just go, all right, well, I'm just going to have to toe bash this, and I mean, it's always been pretty successful. But that's what I want to see. I want to see someone just absolutely toe bash one just into the top corner or something off of one step.
It's got to happen. Surely in the A-League we'll see that. Before we do get onto the A-League, Tommie, and we'll talk about that Adelaide United and Wellington Phoenix game in more detail. Got a few news items and listener questions and just general sort of thoughts that we couldn't squeeze in anywhere else. But I just want to talk just about the Premier League a little bit before we dive into the rest of the football. It's looking pretty certain that City got the league wrapped up now. They're all but certainly going to win the league, we think. Jump in if there are any contrary views, but just a simple question: why exactly, and what exactly makes City so much better than the nearest challengers in Liverpool and Chelsea?
Well, I think all of the reasons that make Pep just the kind of bloke that you wouldn't want to sit down and have a beer with at a party make him a really good football manager. I mean, he's exceptionally dry and incredibly focused, and you can just imagine sitting down with him or getting stuck opposite him at a dinner party and thinking, my God, how do I get away from this guy? Because I think he'd just be insufferable. But that singular focus also makes him just a winner, right? And yeah, as much as we all talk about like they've got a stacked squad, but like, I mean, Liverpool and Chelsea, they also have incredible squads, but they haven't been able to maintain that singular focus that City have been able to, not just this season, but for the last couple of years as well. So
yeah, there seems a lot of debate on social media and a lot of sort of views out there that the reason why City is so much better is that because their squad is so much deeper than the likes of Liverpool and Chelsea have been racked with injuries and all of the rest of it. But we were chatting about this in our group chat earlier this week, and Damo made the good point that City actually aren't that much more stacked than Liverpool and Chelsea. In certain key positions they are, but it seems to be more the case that City are just on a purple patch in terms of star individuals, and this season in particular they've got star individuals who are just performing I guess on a more consistent basis than Liverpool and Chelsea's stars, and then you've got their consistency issues in Liverpool and Chelsea as well.
Remember last year, my view on Pep did change a little bit, where Aguero was out for the vast majority of the season, and he still managed to find a way for them to consistently score goals and also to not concede goals, and to be able to, I think, win in the Premier League and also in Spain as well without maybe a recognised sort of number 9 or playing a recognised number 9, not necessarily as a number 9, showed that, Pep is he can be pretty incredible, and the way that he, I guess, gets a team just on a run. And we've seen it again this year, like with De Bruyne even coming back from injury. And I think a lot of people mightn't have been surprised if he was sort of maybe finished or not quite the player that he used to be. But even he now is coming back and just looks super focused and looks like he's going to be in good form again. So, it's Pep is scary at sort of getting the best out of very good, or already very good footballers, but still getting the best out of them.
He's an absolute lizard man. It's just not human.
Exactly.
And listen to a question from Josh Watson on Twitter. We've got a couple from him. Just moving on to the top 4. He wants to know which team is it most crucial to out of Arsenal, Spurs, West Ham and Manchester United to finish in that. I assume Josh is talking about that 4th spot, assuming that Liverpool and Chelsea will finish 2 and 3.
This is a really good question, I thought, because, I mean, I think everyone kind of immediately would go, oh, well, probably Manchester United because they're the richest club. But I think right now, depending on where each of these different clubs are at in their respective cycles, I think it's actually probably more important for Spurs, and then maybe Arsenal after that, because Manchester United, they're not even at the end of a cycle, but it's just another period of restructure that they're going to be doing. So it's almost going to be better for them if they don't make Champions League. Maybe not financially, but as far as Spurs or Arsenal go, I think that it will really enable them to strengthen their squads and bring in some extra players and maybe then enable them to push that sort of top 2, top 3 next year if they are able to get into the Champions League. And I mean, West Ham, the fact that they're even in that conversation is incredible, really.
Yeah, and just on the Spurs point, Tommie, I think that's a good point. And just further that, I mean, they've got, it's sort of like they've had in Mourinho, they've had, a lot of people like to call them cheap when it comes to transfers, and maybe they are if you compare them to the likes of Chelsea and others up, the top end of the table. But they've really pushed the boat out to get in the likes of Conte, and you'd think that if they're going to have him stick around and be able to back him anywhere near the amount he wants, which I guess won't be close enough, but they're going to need to finish in 4th. So I think that's probably the right answer, that it's most critical to Spurs given where they are in their cycle. Like you say, that it's just critical for them to finish there, because West Ham, I mean, lucky to be there. United and Arsenal, they could keep rebuilding anyway. Arsenal are on the way up with the youth, and things are starting to click there, but it's not really going to matter to them as much whether they finish in the top 4 this season. Good question.
Very good question.
Just another one now from Josh Watson. He's asking, because we're into the January transfer window now, so he wants to know next summer is going to be the strikers window. Early predictions as to where Haaland, Vlahovic, Kane and Mbappe will end up, or will they stay? Who's Vlahovic, Tommie?
So he's the bloke that's he's at Fiorentina at the moment, and he's second only to Lewandowski in terms of most goals in this current calendar. Last calendar year in 2021 in Europe. So he's been in incredible form, and there was some question marks over whether or not he would be able to replicate last season's form this year, and he's doing bits again for Fiorentina. And basically Fiorentina are a bit of a bind though, because they don't really have much sort of beyond him, but he has said that he's not going to renew his contract beyond this year. So pretty much Fiorentina need to either sell him now or lose him for a free in 6 months' time. So I'd be very surprised if he doesn't leave this January.
Yeah, okay. Dusan Vlahovic, a 21-year-old Serbian striker, nearly 2 meters high. Yeah, plays for Fiorentina, like you said, Tommie. Looks every bit the Football Manager wonder kid, and interesting to see where he'll end up. But so I'm just thinking whether Josh is asking whether they're going to move in January or just January, looking forward to the summer window, as in the European summer.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised.
I mean, you wouldn't.
I'd be very surprised if Haaland or Mbappe move in January. But I mean, the following northern summer, so in June, July, I mean, it could be a complete just merry-go-round with, I think Vlahovic is going to leave Fiorentina in January, but after that, geez, who knows? And I mean, if there's one good thing about some of these big transfers, it's that often it means that it develops a bit of a trickle effect with money starting to flow around Europe again. And it's probably if PSG, if the Qataris and the Saudis and the Emiratis, if they can splash a bit of cash and just sort of get the football economy going again, that'd be very much appreciated, I think, throughout the football world.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was thinking, and we've been talking about it on this pod for a while, about the January transfer window, and with the impact of COVID and the usual injuries, and now you've got AFCON, a club's going to be more likely to be reaching out in the January window to try and push them forward. I'm thinking of the likes of Liverpool and Chelsea, even, and then you've got clubs down the bottom like Newcastle who are going to have to spend big in January as well. So it might not be the usual kind of quiet January transfer window that we're used to.
Yeah, I'm expecting this is going to be a big January. Obviously, you got Newcastle as well, but also West Ham have had that the recent Czech investor as well, and so there's a bit more money floating around West Ham. There's a sense that if they push a little bit harder and maybe get in one or two right personalities, they might be able to push on for the top four or at least the top six. So there's obviously some enthusiasm there, but I think Newcastle alone, they're probably just going to sort of kickstart the transfer economy almost single-handedly.
And finally, we've got a question that snuck in right before we're about to start recording from Jack McDonald on Twitter, asking, what was the biggest robbery Cancelo was involved in last week? Tommie, do you know what Jack's talking about here?
Oh, that's a great shout. If listeners didn't catch this one, it was basically Joao Cancelo. His family got robbed, I think, in the lead up to the Arsenal match, and it was looking unclear on whether or not Cancelo would even travel to London for the game. So, I mean, fair play to him that he. I think he got assaulted in the robbery as well, and his family were at home as well. So, I mean, real world stuff, like pretty scary, but I guess fair play to him, the fact that he turned up and still played the game against Arsenal.
Wow, so we've had a robbery at Joao Cancelo's house, and we'll be talking about the robbery he was involved at the Emirates later on in the show. All right, well, coming up next, we will have the Isuzu Ute A-League men. Tommie, just the one game of the A-League this week. Adelaide 4, Wellington 0. 2 penalties to Adelaide, with Goodwin sealing them both. And I would call this a Goodwin hat trick, but Blackwood got credited with the final touch of the opening goal, and didn't he celebrate like he had a lot to do with it as well?
Oh,
but,
my goodness.
As it was in the end, just the two. But yeah, Blackwood, what have you got to say about him, Tommie?
I think we were talking about robberies just earlier, about 30 seconds ago, Colby, and I think this is right up there in terms of robberies, because the fact that Blackwood even celebrated that as if he just hit a 30-meter worldie was just ridiculous, I thought. I mean, he isn't a player that's known for scoring a lot of goals, but I mean, that celebration sort of demonstrated that, I think.
Unbelievable. I watched that replay so many times. I'm thinking, why is he celebrated? Like, Goodwin's just hit like a really nice goal there, and Blackwood is coming in and just cutting Goodwin's lunch big time. Elsewhere in this game, we had Adelaide's goalkeeper Delianov injured by Ben Waine contesting for a ball. And we had young Stephen Hall, a teenager, getting his debut, who I think I saw tweeted as the youngest goalkeeper in A-League history, 16 years and 350 days.
Yeah, not quite the youngest in Australian top flight history, but yeah,
but
definitely
in A-League.
the youngest in A-League history. Yeah, which, I mean, 16 is incredible to be a goalkeeper at the highest level, but obviously great for him.
And what was cleaner, Tommie? His clean sheet or the skin where his sideburns should be?
Just on the topic of Delinoff getting injured, I actually thought that Ben Waine was incredibly hard done by to be getting a yellow card for that incident. I mean,
I couldn't believe it.
I actually thought it was a 50-50 and Ben Waine was well within his rights to go for it. And like I believe that Delinoff had a dislocated shoulder, which that's not the kind of injury that you cop when someone has like tackled you sort of inappropriately or
that's
something.
The kind
like
of injury you get by falling on the wrong spot.
Yeah, exactly. So look, it seemed to me like it was one of those incidences where the player was sent off, or sorry, was carded because the other player got an injury, but didn't wait to sort of get a feel for, okay, is the injury actually even related to the incident, or is it just sort of, is it a bit of an accident? So yeah, I guess fortunately Ben Wade didn't get another yellow card and ended up getting sent off, but still pretty it would have been disappointing if I were him.
When the Waine train's coming through, you just got to get off the tracks. But Adelaide did run out 4-0 winners with the final goal going to your boy Tommie, Harvey Lopez. Delicious volley, this one. It was like a little drive-by just off the outside of the boot too. Brilliant goal, worth mentioning.
Very tasty, very tasty. I thought this and Goodwin's goal, aka Blackwood's goal, I thought they were both really good goals, and it was just a bit of I feel a little bit for Wellington, because I'm not sure if the scoreline really reflected the difference between the teams. I think Adelaide definitely deserved to go out winners, but Wellington, I thought they were in it throughout this game, and so a bit tough on them. But I mean, Wellington have already been hit for, they've already conceded 4 goals unanswered in 2 games already this season. So it sort of does begin to be a little bit concerning, I think, for the Knicks fans. I think already some people were saying that they might struggle this season, and maybe we're starting to see evidence of that.
Yeah, it's hard to know how much to read into this scoreline. Adelaide got 2 penalties, but 2 very good goals as well. Wellington looked good. They looked in it the whole match, despite the scoreline, like you say. So, yeah, hard to know how much to read into it. But then again, you look at Wellington, you look at their squad, you look at their players, the key players that came out of the spine, and they've tried to replace them. They've got new players coming in. They've got their new Mexican who I think is going to be another 2 weeks before he comes in. I mean, they can only do what they can do, but, you know, sometimes when you lose your best players in key positions and then you try and replace them, it doesn't always work out.
Really, really tough on them. And I think maybe they might have been sort of in a situation where they were just sort of had all of their fingers and toes crossed that someone was going to get COVID and they were going to have their games postponed. But I guess that's, unfortunately, they weren't able to buy a little bit of extra time for the new signing to get on board. So,
yeah, and we talked about the Ben Waine on Delionov coming together, but I wanted to just touch on the first penalty in this one, and we're talking about penalties all throughout this pod because you mentioned them in your moment of the week, Tommie. But the Tim Payne penalty on Blackwood, what did you make of that?
Yeah, pretty soft, and I mean, I'm not surprised that the referee didn't look at that in real time and say, yep, that's a penalty, because I mean, it was one of those real 50-50 calls, and one of those ones where if the referee looks at that in real time and says, yeah, look, that's probably not a penalty, and then goes back at it and has another look, they're probably going to notice that it is a 50-50 call, and maybe just needs to go with their initial reaction, which was, yeah, okay, it's very close. Is it a 50-50 call, and then go with the with cricket, how they defer to the original judgment, which I think is sometimes maybe not a bad way to go, I think, in situations like that.
Yeah, that's right.
The second penalty, though, I mean, there was absolutely no question about that, because and I tell you what, Bernardo Cassio's son, I think it is, isn't it? That was really nicely sort of just sort of what's the word I'm after? Did a really good job of just sort of teasing the defender, and I think it might have been, was it Ben Waine again in this one?
I don't
Or
know
Tim Payne.
who.
I get the two confused.
I think, yeah, I'm not sure who brought Bernardo down for that pen, but it was absolutely clear. And I think this was the pen where oh no.
Bernardo was cutting in off the right and sort of squared the defender up.
Yes,
and then
yes,
he just sort of jinked past him, and the defender stuck out a leg. And
very dangerous. And good to get a start as well. I think he came in for Halloran and got his start that way. But he looks not out of place at all. And he looks like he'll be fighting for his spot in the starting lineup, even when they have players coming back, because he looks quite a player. I'm just go on.
One player that's not going to be coming back is Ben Halloran. He's off to the K League, and I'm not sure if you were.
Oh.
You were tracking this, Colby. So apparently this was announced just after full time. So Ben Halloran's off to the K League, and he's actually had a really good start for the season for Adelaide. So we might be seeing a lot more of Bernardo over the coming weeks.
Geez, well, I mean, that's good for Adelaide, because of course they've got George Blackwood, who's in for Motore, who's in for Yengi. So they're looking very light up front. So they're going to need big output from Bernardo and Craig Goodwin, to carry that lineup, unless Blackwood plays as well as he thinks he does. But I just noticed there was one point in this game where Bernardo just put the most delicious through ball into Blackwood, who just ran it into a cul-de-sac. I mean, he looks every bit the Adelaide Robbie Cruz.
Oh, geez, just real grim, isn't it? Yeah, wow.
And so we talked a bit of Adelaide. From Wellington, one player that stood out to me in this match for them was McGarry, who tried a couple of step overs in this game. One was outside the opposition's 18-yard box, where he's gone to do the little around the back sort of step around the ball to try and zoom past the defender, but just completely misses it, and then goes and tries one outside of his own 18-yard box. Ooh. I just thought that was very ambitious by him.
They say there's a fine line between bravery and stupidity.
Yeah. It's all right. It's all right to try it and fail when you're up the other end of the pitch, but if you're a fullback, just do your job, mate. And a few other things. We'll shout out a few other things that stood out to us in this game. I noticed towards the end of it, the Adelaide Active were picking up the Barmy Army chant. Did you clock that in stoppage time? I think they had adjusted it for the Red Army, but.
No, I didn't catch that one. But one thing I did notice was that it did seem like the Adelaide crowd was actually pretty quiet for big patches of this game, despite them being up. But what was the Barmy Army chant that they were singing?
Oh, we are the army, and whatever they were singing to it. But it was I've just got it burned into my brain from watching 3 test matches, despite how short those test matches were.
Fair enough.
And that's all of the A-League this week, though. Of course, we had the Central Coast New Year's Eve fixture postponed. Western Sydney, Newcastle, Melbourne Victory, Sydney all had games postponed as well. But hopefully we'll have more A-League to bring you in the coming weeks. Hopefully we won't have a need for a postponement in the league overall, or any kind of circuit breaker. But who knows what's going to happen. For now, it looks like the leagues are pushing on to try and keep going and squeeze fixtures in wherever they can.
It's going to be wild in the next couple of weeks when all of these postponed fixtures in the A-League and the Premier League all get caught up in just weird and wonderful time slots. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, Perth and Brisbane are going to be playing 3 games a week at home in international breaks and things like that. So, could be some silver linings there. Who knows? Or it could be a car crash. But it'll be the A-League, and we'll be covering it. Coming up next, match day 21 of the Premier League. In the Premier League this week, Tommie, we've had a couple of cracking matches, a lot more football than in the A-League, but we'll kick off with Chelsea and Liverpool overnight. It was a must-win for both teams in the context of any kind of title race, having dropped points in the previous week, and Manchester City having extended their lead at the top of the table to 11 points going into this match. But as it was a very entertaining 2-2 draw. The real winner there, of course, being Manchester City. Liverpool up 2 goals in the first half and looked completely dominant before Chelsea came back just before just before half time, and then on the 46th minute it got right back into the game, leaving it 2-2 at half time, and that's where it stayed. But overshadowing all of this, I suppose, Tommie, was news that Chelsea had dropped their star striker Lukaku. Tuchel left out his record signing an informed striker after an interview that Lukaku gave to Sky Italia that was released during the week. I believe it was recorded a couple of weeks ago and then released during the week, where Lukaku's complained about his role under Tuchel. Tommie, was it the right move to leave him out?
Well, Thomas Tuchel just seemed to be too cool to be rattled by this. He decided straight away to bench Lukaku. And I don't know where Lukaku's head is at right now, but if nothing else, Tuchel basically stamped his authority on this situation and said, yeah, mate, regardless of how focused he is right now, he said, probably, I get the impression it was like an unauthorized interview or something like that. And I'm not sure how you can do an unauthorized interview or something like that. But anyway, it's just it's a bit of a strange situation, really, because yeah, he's one of the probably one of the most well paid footballers at Chelsea and in the Premier League, but the whole thing seems a little bit strange. That first of all he would do it, secondly that the club seemed to have no idea about the content of it, and just bizarre the whole thing, and also that it was recorded 3 weeks ago, and they seemingly held it over until he's now finally back from injury and from COVID as well. Like, what's everyone thinking? It just seems so like half baked.
The winner out of this is Sky Sports Italia and Man City, obviously, because they got the right result they wanted in Chelsea and Liverpool both dropping points in this draw. But I thought Tuchel handled it quite well as he could. If in fact he didn't know about it and it was unauthorized, I don't see why it would have been. But he basically came out and said, "Oh, look, I've got no beef with Lukaku. Lukaku was injured, then he had COVID. He played off the bench without training, and I think he should just worry about playing and training." Was essentially what Tuchel had to say about it. But in terms of him dropping,
good shout, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But in terms of him dropping Lukaku, it looks great if Chelsea get the win and then Tuchel can sort of just stamp his authority on the game. But as it was, they dropped points to Liverpool in this. Liverpool, made a few good saves. I thought Kelleher, who was in for Alisson, was brilliant in this game. But it might have been a game where they needed an informed striker to change the game potentially.
Well, Chelsea have already been in terrible form for the past 6 weeks. They've had 4 wins in the past 11 league games. So, that's not Premier League winning form, right? And so, this was not just a good to win game. This was a must win game for them. So, the fact that they haven't taken 3 points away from this game, that's not a great result for Tuchel. And a club like Chelsea, you almost start to wonder if he's going to be under pressure now. Maybe not now, but give him another 3 months, and they're sitting in third. That's the kind of performance that Chelsea just have shown that they don't really find acceptable.
And who has Lukaku got off on the wrong foot with the worst, Tommie? Was it Tuchel or Christian Pulisic?
Oh, I loved this story. So Pulisic apparently had a beef with Lukaku pretty much straight away after Lukaku arrived, I believe. I think that's your recollection as well, Colby. And so Lukaku apparently did like an impersonation of Pulisic's American accent, and
didn't he say he was like tripping dog or something like that?
Like doubled down on it when Pulisic got like offended about it, and oh man, it's just hilarious. I thought that was actually pretty funny. Which as well, we've joked before about Lukaku's massive baggy shorts, like he's wearing jeans and Timberlands, but it's almost like he's like dressed like an American rapper or something like that.
he just can't seem to do anything right at the moment, can he? Like, I mean, gets injured, maybe that's no fault of his own, gets COVID, query whether that's any fault of his own, and that, you know, he's in and out of form, in and out of the team, and he just doesn't seem to do himself any favours.
Always me. That's the next thing he'll have, the t-shirt.
Yeah, Balotelli 2.0.
Yeah.
Anything else stand out to you in this one?
No, I did think the funny thing, probably the best meme that I saw out of this was someone said that when Lukaku sat down at the beginning of the sort of the first interview that he did after this, someone offered him a drink and he said, sure, but it will just never be as good as the water that they had at Inter.
And apparently Inter don't want him now as well. The fans... I saw some tweet going around with the fans having a banner saying something to the effect of like, we don't want you back, essentially.
But it was Conte's Inter, and Conte's not there anymore. So like it'd be a very different club. And I saw they what did they say? The Inter fans or someone, might have been someone on social media, or it was the Inter fans that were saying that, well, like since Lukaku's left, they've since replaced him with Dzeko, and he was. They also pocketed 80 or 90 million pounds. So they're doing just as well without him. Plus they've got all that extra money that they can spend on other people or whatever. But I guess maybe the funniest thing was the idea of Lukaku going to Conte Spurs with Conte being there now, which that as well just seemed like a bizarre set of circumstances. But you never know. We live in a strange world, don't we?
Yeah, that's football. Anything could happen. And anything did happen at the Emirates, Tommie, where Arsenal went down 2-1. They looked to be in a commanding position in the first half. Despite having a strong penalty shout denied by the VAR, they went up through Saka in that first half and looked to just have a handle on things. But after the break, they would miss an open goal after a brilliant goal line clearance by Ake, have Gabriel sent off after a second yellow, and concede a sweaty stoppage time winner poked in by Rodri. And that's not even mentioning the VAR decision that went against them in that half. We'll start with the VAR. Did they get these decisions right, Tommie? We'll start with the Ederson on Odegaard decision.
This incident really was one of those instances where I think, depending on your whoever you support or whatever outcome you're trying to sort of back, you could always make an argument, I think, that either party is correct, because this is the epitome of a line ball call. Like, I think you could make a pretty decent case that this is a foul on Odegaard, and also make a pretty decent case that it's not a penalty. So, I mean, not to sit on the fence at all, but I think it's one of those ones where the referee's damned if they do, damned if they don't. And the fact that they end up making the call in favour of the bigger team probably just sort of speaks more to all the conspiracy theorists out there more than anything.
What do you mean? They made the call in City's favour?
Well, and I guess that's going to be the story out of this, isn't it? The referees, they only favour the big teams now, and like a poor little upstart club like Arsenal just can't get a kick even with the referees anymore. So, well,
our boy Jared Gillett was in the VAR booth for this one. Tommie, is he a City fan?
Well, he must be, mustn't he? Like or he just only supports the big clubs. So,
glory hunter. Well, look, going back to this Ederson one though, before we move on to the other one, I didn't see him get a foot on the ball. Like, who? For me, that's a pen, isn't it? Like, if he's cleaned up Odegaard and he didn't get a foot on the ball. Did I missee it?
Colby, you seem to be far less on the fence about this than what I've been. You seem
I thought it was clear when I watched it. I did want City to lose.
Yeah. And that is a very good point, is that I think you can very much make a case to either way that this either is or isn't a penalty. So really glad I'm a neutral for it.
The second one looked a bit muddy, a bit muddier in my opinion, Tommie. What did you make of this Xhaka on Bilva? It was reviewed by the VAR and it was given in favour of Bilva, who went down.
Yeah, this is this is one that I thought was less, well, maybe more clear in my mind whether it should or shouldn't have been a penalty. And it's one that, like, I guess we see a lot of at the top level, where a player is kind of running and they might feel a hand on them, and then all of a sudden their legs just give way from out underneath them. So, and the likes of Bilver, they are the kings of it. Salah is another one who does tend to concede or get a lot of penalties sort of similar to this.
He doesn't dive, Tommie.
Oh, I didn't say that. I said he goes down under maybe light contact. But but look, a really dissatisfying penalty whenever your team concedes a penalty like this. I think. I mean, even if Xhaka is involved and everyone basically sees him as a walking penalty conceder.
Anything else on this one?
Yeah, look, I do have to. I think Damo and I think, well, maybe it might have been you and I, Colby, last week, that I think we have to take a little bit of responsibility here. I think we said that Arsenal had turned a corner and Gabriel was good now, and obviously he's just not good.
That was us, yeah. I'll cop to that.
But I did. I was messaging Killian today because he and I we've got a match up in a fantasy draft this week, and I said that the Gabriel is the new David Luiz at Arsenal, and I mean, he's been pretty consistent this year, sort of a little bit in and out of the squad, but doing things like that, like, what do you got? You got a yellow card for dissent, and then a yellow card for that foul on Gabby Jesus, which, I mean, that was a pretty tough yellow card, I thought, the second one, but obviously a foul, but to call that a second yellow, bit rough, but yeah, just pretty grim times to be sent off that quickly in any case.
Yeah, head went, and he was a bit of a silly bugger, but
silly goose.
Harsh to call him the new David Luiz, though.
Oh, no, it's just because he's Brazilian and he's a centre back and plays for Arsenal.
Oh yeah, okay. Sure. All right. Well, a few other results, Tommie. Don't know which of these you want to go through. Why don't we start with your West Ham, who played out a 2-3 loss to 2-3 win. My apologies, over Crystal Palace.
Yeah, look, great goal for Manuel Lanzini in this one. 3 touches in 3 steps, and then sort of teed himself up for a volley there, which was probably one of the goals of the round in a round where there was a bunch of really good goals, actually. But yeah, West Ham looking to find a draw or a defeat from the clutches of the win there, but. A pretty decent result against a pretty decent Palace team, I thought. So Palace would have been a little bit disappointed not to have maybe come away with anything. I think they hit the crossbar at least. I think they hit the crossbar once and the post once as well. Had a pretty decent shout for a penalty as well. And also, they were also pretty annoyed at the Milivojevic penalty as well, which, I mean, I think that's pretty clear cut, but it was probably more clear cut than the other penalties that we've talked about. But I mean, yeah, anyway.
Yeah, well, yeah, good to get a win for West Ham because they've had some patchy results lately, and it keeps them in touch of the top 4. So, yeah, I think you'd be happy with that, of course, Tommie.
Very happy.
Other results, key one that stands out for me is Everton dropping points to Brighton at home. And I saw this all over social media today, tweeting about Benitez out. How much pressure is he under?
Must be under quite a bit of pressure. And I mean, we talked about how Palace were probably a little bit disappointed that they didn't come away with anything from this game. I think Everton would have been disappointed. I mean, excuse me, they missed a penalty as well with Calvert-Lewin hitting the crossbar from the penalty spot, which just you must just want to, I mean, throw yourself through a window or something like that at just how frustrating it must have been for them to be well in this game. But I had a bit of the penny dropped a little bit for me with this one of Calvert-Lewin looking like Naaman Bryce from The Wire. You remember the big bushy ponytail? I don't know if you remember or if you've seen The Wire, but
classic show.
Yeah, really, really disappointing, I think, for Everton. And obviously they are down in, I think they're down in 15th or something like that, but there's still quite a big gap to the next group of teams in the table. But I mean, it can take as little as sort of 2 weeks before teams start catching them up.
Yeah, it's still very, very busy from like 10th down to relegation.
Yeah, and look, a couple other things that I caught from this game, Colby. First one was Dan Burn. His goal, I think it might have been Brighton's second. I love that. I mean, everyone knows that Dan Burn is just a monster of a man. I love that he didn't have to jump for the header to score that goal. He just sort of stood there and just nodded it in when every other player like almost couldn't reach the ball. Which
it's like the basketballer who can just dunk without getting off the ground.
exactly, same areas. And also I wanted to give a shout out for Alexis McAllister, just doing absolute bits. I mean, the first goal was good, but the second goal, geez, he hit that sweat.
McAllister. And Tommie, a few other results before we wrap this up. Leeds 3, Burnley 1. They've got themselves out of the relegation zone. Crucial win to arrest this winless run that they've been on. Poor old Burnley, though, that puts them into the relegation zone. But I mean, what's going on down there?
This game wasn't quite a 6-pointer, but it was sort of getting there, right? I mean, it's funny we talk about some games like they're a relegation 6-pointer and some not, even though they're involving teams that are right down there. So, but yeah, big win for Leeds, and yeah, Burnley obviously struggling. But we mentioned a little bit earlier about like West Ham and Newcastle having some money to spend, but I think Burnley have got a bit of money to spend. Well, they got new owners in the last 6 to 12 months, so and they brought in Maxwell Cornet as well. I mean, hasn't he been incredible for them? So we might see Burnley actually open the checkbook and buy some players over the next couple of months or the next month.
It feels weird to see these teams like Burnley and Sheffield when they were up in the Premier League, like branching out from like British players in their teams. Like Cornet, he sticks out every time I see him. I'm like, that just like feels weird to see like a non-British player playing at that club.
He's like the least Burnley player that that they could have signed, but I mean,
he's been absolutely brilliant for them. Yeah. Let's hope it goes better for Burnley than it did for Sheffield in the transfer market. Now they're opening up their checkbooks. They are in a little bit of trouble. Tottenham late winner over Watford 1-0 to keep Tottenham in sort of striking distance of the top 4. Looking like they might be clicking a little bit under Conte, and everyone's talking about like how much running they're doing as a team. Like everyone's saying, they're doing 14 Ks of running each or something like that. So make of those stats what you will, but they are getting results.
I love it how like every so often a certain club will have a particular stat that everyone just kind of gets a bit obsessed about, and like it was a little bit like that about sort of 6 or 12 months ago with West Ham as well. How everyone was like, they're doing so much running, they just run so much, and Spurs are having that moment now, which geez, they just run so much. It's fantastic.
Whether it's skin folds, running, they just find a stat and then just get obsessed. Closing out the round, tomorrow we've got Manchester United hosting Wolves. Very interesting to see how this one will go. It's a must win for United in terms of staying in reach of the top 4. Wolves, meanwhile, have been in decent form, although have just won 1 in their last 5. They've seemed to be playing much better football and clicking a little bit more. Tommie, how do you see this one going?
This one's got 0-0 written all over it as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Manchester United don't trouble the scorers, because Wolves have been very stingy defensively over the last couple of months, and I'm just not sure if things are still quite clicking yet for Manchester United. So it wouldn't surprise me if that's the way things turn out there. But I mean, now that I've said that, it'll probably be 4-4.
I do not see this being more than like a 1-1. I agree with you. I agree with your first inkling, mate. Like I think, both teams have looked pretty well. Wolves in particular, defensively very stingy, but not looking like they'll score many either. And United bit out of form up front as well.
Mm-hmm.
So just before we do wrap up the pod, we've got the monthly winner of our MTAG FPL for December, Tommie.
Yeah, Colby. So look, the 1st of January is the first day of 2022, and also means we've got a giveaway. So for the December prize for More Than a Game FPL, this month's winner is it's Camilo Zanoni. So his team, the Cannibal Lions FC. Camilo, aka Guna5 Ever on Twitter. He's this month's winner. So well done, Camilo. We'll be in touch with you over the next couple of days to get you your prize. Also want to have a shout out to the Bray brothers, Trent and Ryan. They were first and second respectively for the month of December, so would have been plenty of chat there, I'm sure, between the two of them over this month's FPL results. In terms of the overall standings, though, so Danny Demovsky's Saka Punch, great team name as well. He holds the overall lead at the moment. He's got one of the best team names going around as well, I think. So, but look, that's just, how things are standing in More Than a Game FPL. Obviously, plenty more of the season to go. Look, it's been a tough season this year with FPL, with all of the COVID cancellations, and everyone's got a second free hit now, and no one knows what to do with it, and it's just chaos.
Yeah, Tommie, you and I were in a bit of a race, but I've just absolutely tanked it this month. So I've let you get a bit ahead of me. I will be back. I'll be back. I was sitting up around like 30th, 40th earlier on in the season, but I'm all the way down in 74th now.
It hasn't been a good month, so you might actually be that far ahead of me in terms of points. So mate, we'll have to check that out when we get off the pod.
Life comes at you pretty fast. Okay, well, that's going to do it for us on the pod today. Thanks again, and as always, for listening. If you've liked the pod, let us know, let your mates know, subscribe to the pod on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Follow us on social media, Twitter, Facebook. We're on Reddit as well, YouTube, and we link to all of our social media in the notes to this podcast. We'll be back with you next week for match day 22 of the Premier League and round 8 of the A-League. But until then, enjoy the football.